Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 4 is pennies for pay. Okay, so write a program that calculates the amount of money a person would earn over a period of time if his or her salary is 1 penny the first day, 2 pennies the second day, and continues to double each day. The program should ask the user for the number of days. Display a table showing what the salary was for each day, and then show the total pay at the end of the period. The output should be displayed in a dollar amount, not the number of pennies. Starting out with Python, I'm supposed to type the full thing. Let me just do that. Okay, so just bear with me here. Okay, all right, could have done that later on, but okay, so so this program wants the user to basically the user is going to type in how many days they worked, right? And we are assuming the user gets paid a penny the first day. So basically the user's pay gets doubled each day. So if the user gets paid a penny today, tomorrow they get paid $2, and then the next day $2 is going to double to $4, and then on the fourth day $4 is going to double to $8, and on the fifth day $8 is going to double to $16. Basically their salary doubles each day, starting with day 1. So day 1 they are receiving 1 penny, day 2 they are receiving 2 pennies, day 3 two pennies doubles to 4 pennies, and day 3 they receive 4 pennies. So basically we should write a program displaying a table of the day and how many pennies they made for that day, and the user has to enter how many days they worked, and it should display a table of how many days they worked and how much they earned, or how many pennies they earned for that day. And then after we're done, we're supposed to keep track of how many pennies they made for all the days, sum it all up, and display how much they made. And it should be displayed in a dollar amount, not the number of pennies. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. Now over here it says, when you read, towards the end of it says, actually that's not towards the end. It's actually here. It's over here in the middle. The program should ask the user for the number of days. The program should ask the user for the number of days. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and ask the user for the number of days. And I'm going to do that with the input function here. Now the input function is basically going to ask the user something, display a message to the user, and allow the user to type in something or type in a response. So I'm going to ask the user to please enter how many days you worked. Oops, sorry, my typing is not good. Okay, so the input function is going to display this to the user and allow the user to type in something. Okay, and whatever that user types is going to be returned. Now the input function always returns a string. Even if the user types in I worked 2 days or 5 days, the input function is not going to return that integer as an integer. It's going to return it as a string. The input function by default always returns a string. But the thing is, we need that returned value as a number, as an integer, so we can use it in the way we want to use it in this program, in calculations. We can't work with a string in this program. We need an integer. So what we have to do is we have to convert what the user has typed, which is being returned as a string. We have to convert it to an integer, and we do that with the int function. So I'm going to type in the int function and surround everything that the user has typed with the int function. So I'm typing in, or I'm calling the int function and passing in everything that the user has typed as an argument, and it's going to convert everything that the user has typed and return it. And when it's returned, we need a place to store it. Now we know this is how many days the user worked, okay, or the worker worked. So we need to create a variable to store that. So I'm going to do just that and create a variable which is going to hold number of days worked. So number of days worked is going to over here. Number of days worked is going to store how many days the user worked here. So now we will have the number of days the user worked. Okay, so let's see. So we know that the user, we know the salary for at least for day 1 is one penny, right? So let's go ahead and create that. We can go ahead and use 1 penny directly in the program, or we can store it in a variable just to keep the program, organize. Just in case in the future the salary gets changed to two cents or 2 pennies per day, you can go ahead and just change it in one place and it affects the whole entire program. So I'm just doing that. So I'm just storing 1 penny. I'm going to call that variable pay per day. Pay per day is going to be equal to 0.01. Let's see. Pay per day is going to be equal to 0.01. I didn't necessarily have to do this, but like I said, I'm just storing it in a variable. I'll use this somewhere in the program. So I'm just storing that in there. And the next thing we need to do is, let's see, we're going to create a loop. Since we have the number of days work, we're going to create a loop that's going to loop the number of days basically they inserted. So if they type in 10 times, the loop is going to iterate 10 times. So let's go ahead and create a for loop. And basically the loop is going to calculate the pennies they made for that day. So I'm going to create a for loop and say I'm going to create a target variable, which is I'm going to call it for current day. For current day in range number of days worked. Now, current day is a target variable. Number of days worked is basically the number of days worked. So basically, if the user typed in, let's say 13, this is basically a list of 0 all the way to 12. 13 is not part of it. 13 is not part of, it's like an upper limit, but it's not included in the list. This loop is going to loop 13 times, all right, but it's starting at an index of 0, meaning the first time this loop iterates, 0 is going to be stored in current day, and it's going to iterate once and come back. And then 1 is going to be stored in current day, it's going to iterate and come back. And then 2 is going to be stored in current day and iterate and come back, all the way to 12. 13 is not included. So 13 is the upper limit, not included. So this is basically looping. Okay, it's going to iterate starting from 0 all the way to 12. 0 is going to be stored in current day initially, all the way to 12. All right, so 13, basically, this is just an example, but in actual fact, it's going to be the number of days worked. Okay, so in each time, basically, well, we know that. I'll get to that later. So each time, basically, we want to go ahead and calculate the pennies they made for that day. Now we know current day is keeping track of the current day, okay? But initially, current day is starting from 0, right? So, but we can't go ahead and display, we can't display day 0, right? Now, if this is, let's say, again, let me use another example. If the user typed in 10 for days, this is going to iterate from 0 all the way to 9. 10 is not included. So, although it's iterating 10 times, because when you count 0 all the way to 9, you're counting 10 times. But 10 is not included. So, but the thing is, if you're displaying, we can't go ahead and display day 0. It's actually day 1 to 10, right? But this loop is going to iterate from 0 to 9. So we can go ahead and add 1 when we are displaying it so that it looks like 1 to 10. So yes, that's what I wanted to say. Number of days worked. This is actually going to be the number of days worked. All right, so what we want to go ahead and do is we want to calculate a couple of variables. We want to calculate the number of pennies they made for the day. And also, we want to keep track of how many pennies they made, for all the days. So we'll create a variable to keep track of that. But first of all, let's go ahead and print. Well, before printing, let's calculate the pennies they made for that day. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it pennies for day. Okay, for day. I can name it pennies for the day. It's fine. Pennies for the day is now going to be equal to, now the question said that we are assuming that his salary is 1 penny the first day, or his or her salary is 1 penny the first day, 2 pennies the second day, and continues to double each day. Now so basically it's an exponent, but let me just use a calculator to explain that really quickly here. So yes, all right, so basically, since we know that, actually, let's open a new, let's see over here. Let's open a new program. So let's open this and open that. All right. that was a Java program I was working on earlier on. Okay, so we know that the current day is going to start from 0 all the way to 9. So it's good for our calculation. So basically 2 exponent 0, any number raised to the power 0 gives you 1. So that's the first salary for the day. That's basically the formula we're using to calculate the pennies for the day. 2 exponent the current day. So 2 exponent 0, first of all, is 1. And then 2 exponent 1 now is 2. Now 1 has doubled to 2. 2 exponent 2 gives you 4. Now 2 has doubled to 4. Now 4 has to double to 8, right? So that's 2 exponent 3. Oh, sorry. Exponent 3. It's basically the same thing. All right. So now 2 exponent 4 gives you 16. 8 has doubled to 16. Now for 16 to double to 2, for 16 to double to 32, it's going to be 2 exponent 5, 32, and 2 exponent 6 over here is going to be 64. So you realize that when you use that formula, 2 exponent the current day, it gives you the pennies they made for a day. The salary doubles each day. It's ideal. The reason why we made the loop start from 0 all the way to 9 because it's ideal for calculating our pennies for the day. But when displaying it, we won't display day 0 all the way to 9. We'll add 1 to the day to display day 1 to 10. It's just been shifted, but it's still 10. If the user types in 10, it's still looping 10 times because when you count from 0 to 9, you're counting 10 times. When you count from 1 to 10, you're counting 10 times. So it's still the number of days that it's going to calculate and display for that number of days that the user typed. So pennies for the day is basically going to be 2 exponents. Now I'm using two asterisks to represent exponents. So 2 exponent, 2 raised to the power is 2 asterisks is for that. If I just did 1, it will be 2 times. Now 2 asterisks means 2 raised to the power. Now I want to raise to the power the current day. 2 raised to the power the current day. Now current day starts from 0. So 2 raised to the power 0 is going to be the first one. And then it's going to be incremented by 1. And then each time it's going to be incremented by 1 and basically the pennies for the day is going to be calculated using that formula. All right, so now we would have the pennies for the day. Now we want to keep track of how many pennies the user had, let's say, in total when basically in all the days. When you add up all the pennies they made for each day together, we want to keep track of all the total number of pennies. So let's go ahead and declare a variable up here. I'm going to initialize it to 0. Total number of pennies is going to be equal to 0. Now initially we don't have any pennies, so we want to go ahead and initialize it to 0 and add to it. So total number of pennies is going to be equal to what's already stored in total number of pennies, okay, plus pennies for the day. So we are adding pennies for the day to what's already stored in total number of pennies, and then storing the result back in total number of pennies. Okay. So initially, total number of pennies will be 0. If let's say the pennies for the day was 1, we are adding 1 to 0 and adding the result 1 plus 0, which is 1 to total number of pennies. And then total number of pennies will be 1. Next time that I iterate, assuming the total number of pennies is, let's say, 2. Of course, it will be 2 because each day doubles. So it's going to be 2, which is pennies for the day, plus what's already stored in total number of pennies, which is 1. So the result is going to be 3, which is going to be stored in total number of pennies. And it's going to keep iterating and adding to what's already stored in total number of pennies. Now this whole string can also be written as total number of pennies plus equals pennies for a day. It's a short form of the previous statement that I just you deleted. So basically it's like what I'm adding, okay, what I'm adding to pennies for the day is total number of pennies. Okay, I am adding I am adding pennies for the day to total number of pennies. You can read it like that. What I am adding to pennies for the other way around. What I'm adding to total number of pennies is pennies for the day. Okay, I am adding pennies for the day to total number of pennies. You can read it like that if it makes sense, or if it helps you that way. So now we can go ahead and display stuff. Let's go ahead and display the day, the current day. Now remember I said current day starts from 0 to 9. We don't want to start displaying day 0 all the way to 9. We want to display day 1 all the way to 10. So by shifting it, by adding 1 to it, it's just going to display, it's not going to change the value of current day, it's just going to display the right values for the day. But we just needed the value 0 to 9 for the calculation for pennies for the day. But to display it, the first time this loop iterates, current day is going to hold 0. But I don't want to display day 0, I want to display day 1. I'm shifting everything by 1 so that it displays 1 to 10 instead of 0 to 9. So print the day, which is going to be current day plus 1. Okay, that's the first argument I'm passing to the current to the print function. So current day, and then I'm going to, so I want to separate it with a tab. So the next argument I'm going to type here is basically at the tab. So \t together is the tab character. So basically I'm creating a tab. So \t is a tab character, and the tab is basically going to create a tab when it's displayed. So \t together is a tab character. Okay, all right, and let's see over here. The last argument I want to display is the pennies for the day. Okay, now when you pass in argument into the print function this way, by default everything is separated by a space. By default, the individual arguments are separated by a space. So current day plus 1, it's going to read current day plus 1 space, a tab space, pennies for the day. So by default, all the arguments you pass into the print function, when you separate them with commas, the individual arguments separated by commas are separated with a space when they are displayed. So now this is what's going to be displayed for the entire loop. And once we're done, we want to go ahead and basically, because the program said over here that the output should be displayed in a dollar amount, not the number of pennies. As it stands now, total number of pennies is going to hold just the number of pennies. It's not going to be displayed in the dollar amount. So if, let's say, we are done, I close the calculator over here. If, let's say, we are done and we have, let's say, 101 pennies, then we know we have $1.01, right? If we multiply 101 by the pay for a day, which is 0.01, we get $1.01. If we multiply 20 pennies by 0.01, then we get 20 cents. If we multiply, let's say, 15 pennies times 0.01, basically we are multiplying how many pennies we got by 1 penny, and we get 15 cents. If we multiply 450 pennies by 0.01, we end up getting $4.50. So we can use that calculation to basically, and again I have this here. This is the previous program I was working on before this one. It's fine. All right. So yes, this is basically the formula we're going to use to calculate. Let me take this back. To calculate the total number of pennies, but in a dollar amount. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So total. Let's see, total number of, let's declare another variable called total salary or something, total salary or total pay. It's going to be equal to the total number of pennies times, now remember we stored 0.01 in pay per day. You could have just typed 0.01 this way. But because I stored it in pay per day, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, pay per day. I don't think this is entirely necessary because we over here all the time we are multiplying by one cent. So let's just, it's not entirely, if we set that as the pay per day and the pay gets increased to, let's say, 2 pennies, it would be wrong for 2 pennies to be multiplied by total number of pennies. To multiply by total number of pennies, because we have to multiply the total number of pennies by 1 penny to get the total pay in a dollar amount. So let me just go ahead and do 0.01, or you can just store 0.01 in a different variable and name it differently. Just name it differently and say a penny or something. A penny is 0.01. You can do that. But over here, for now, I'm just going to do this. And that's going to calculate the total pay. And over here, once I'm done calculating the total pay, I just want to go ahead and print it. So I'm going to print it, print total pay here. And we don't have to format it because it's going to be, in the dollar amount by default, as we saw using the calculator. So we're done. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. So I use a Python shell. I want to save it. So let's save it. So I'm going to save it where I normally save all the Python files. My computer's a bit slow. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder for this one. I'm going to call it Pennies for Pay. And then I'll save this as pennies for pay.py. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, so please enter how many days you worked. I'm going to enter 10 days and hit enter. And we can see that it's displaying from day 1 to 10 and basically the salary and the total salary here. Let's add some more formatting to make it look good. We want to display a header with this, so I'm going to go ahead and type in a print function, display a header before that. So I want to display a column, but basically for day, and I want to create a tab, so the \t, and I want to create another column, and this is going to be the salary, I guess, salary. And we want to display over here total pay as a string. That's going to be the first argument passed into the print function, total pay. And then this is going to be the second argument. The total pay is going to be the second argument. Total pay as a string, one argument. Total pay as a float, the other argument. So now let's, before we display the print, before we go ahead and display the print, let's go ahead and add a new line character. So let's let's take the cursor to the next line before we display this. So I'm going to type in the \n. \n is going to basically create a new line character. It's going to take the cursor from where it is to the next line, and anything that comes after the \n is going to be displayed on that line. So that's what we want. That's what I'm doing. So I'm going to run, no, not the Python shell, debug.io. So how many days you work? I'm going to type in 10, and we can see it's working. Let me go ahead and right after I'm done type in the question I want to, before everything is displayed, I want to create a new line. Another way of creating a new line is just calling the print function. Now when you call the print function and you type in something here, and I run this program, you realize that it's displaying that thing over here, that thing I basically wanted it to display, and it's taking the cursor to the next line. So anything that comes after this is displayed on the next line here. Now by default, the print function does that. It takes the cursor to the next line after it's done displaying whatever you've told it to print. So in this case, you told it to print this, and it took the cursor to the next line. So it printed that, and it took the cursor to the next line. So anything that came after that, which was the day, salary, came or basically continued on that line. You can create a new line by just calling the print function and passing in nothing as the argument. So basically this time around, you're telling it to print nothing, but because by default the print function takes the cursor to the next line, it's still going to take the cursor to the next line. So it's still printing, it's printing nothing, but it's still going to take the cursor to the next line. And whatever comes after this print function over here is displayed on that next line. So by default, when you call the print function on its own like this, you're basically creating a new line. It's going to create a new line, type in nothing, and take the cursor to the next line. So that's one way of also creating a line. So like that, print with an empty argument. So when I run this and I type in 10, you can see that there's a line here and there's a line here This line is because of the new line character here, \n together is the new line character, and this new line is because of this print function here. So that's two ways to create a new line. I just want to add underlines under the day, so I'm going to type in day with some underlines under it. No, actually not that. So after I've displayed the column, let's see, day. After I've displayed the column, I want to underline it. So after I've displayed salary, I'm going to create a new line character. So the cursor is going to go under that before anything that is displayed follows. So \n is to create a new line. Type in some underlines for the day. Create a tab, \t, underline the salary as well. Let's run this and see how it looks. Okay, so it's looking good. So day, see day 1, so the salary doubles. So 1, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 16 to 32, it doubles. And it's keeping track of how many pennies and then showing the dollar amount. We can put a dollar sign here and we can try something low just so we can count how many pennies. Let's try 3 days. And we can see that day 1 it's a penny, day 2 it doubled, day 3 it doubled, and we can see that this is 7 cents and this is displaying as 7 cents. Now because by default the print function because by default the print function displays the arguments you pass to it, okay, with a space. It separates. It displays them with a space separating them. So basically, it's going to print total pay, a new line character, total pay space. So basically, it's displaying the total pay over here, a new line character, total pay, dollar sign, and a space before the total pay. That's why we are seeing this space. This space. It's separating the two arguments with a space. So you can cancel it by just saying separator. Because by default it's a space. You can go ahead and override it and say separator now is equal to nothing. This is a space. You don't want to set it to a space. You want to set it to nothing. So separator now is equal to nothing. SEP is a separator is an argument that specifies a separator. So you're now overriding the separator from a space to nothing. SEP stands for separator. So basically that's going to just not separate these two with a space. And let's try that. Try 3, and we can see now it's closed. The space is closed. Okay, so now we're done. If you have any questions, please comment down below and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next program. All right, bye-bye.